Hello to all the comic fans, Marvel geeks, and all the nerds in between. Welcome to another episode of Vigilante Vibes podcast, where we talk all things Marvel and other parts of nerd culture, like comics and movies, without the toxicity that's taken up way too much space in each and every fandom. I'm your host, Megan Nicole, and today I am so very pleased to introduce a very special guest. Today I am joined by someone who is masterfully shedding a light on the lack of Black representation in DC Comics. James Porter, or JPenumbra, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Of course. So, JPenumbra started the hashtag DC So White movement to bring attention to the fact that DC is purposely leaving out their Black characters, their Black stories, which is a disservice to the Black audience. As of today, when this episode is being recorded, it's been 1,177 days since DC published an ongoing comic book for a Black character in their main continuity. So we have a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, it's crazy because like I was doing the research recently when it comes to the idea of figuring out like how many ongoings had DC had in their mainline continuity over the years, and there's only been 10. There's only been 10 in like 50 years coming in January with Black Lightning. So it's like, how is this possible? It blows my mind that we're even like at this point.
And the fact that it hasn't been brought up either, because when you bring out the statistics, I've been to the website, I've read, I've stalked your Threads account. Every time something new is shared, it is so mind blowing because this is the
Mhm.
first that a lot of people have heard about it. And the comments are, they don't pass the vibe check, which is
Yeah, no,
bananas
especially
to me.
Twitter earlier because like somebody posted like they asked on Twitter earlier. Someone was like, "Hey, can you give me a reading guide for Vixen?" And I'm like, "I would if it existed." So it's just like it's one of those things where it's like there's never been an ongoing for a Black woman in DC. Like there's like this idea that for some reason Black doesn't sell, and someone was even like what makes Vixen worthy of it, and I list all the reasons that she could be the Tyra Banks of the DC universe. She could have this great status and like make a statement in the universe. You could elevate her in the same way that Aquaman's been done with the blue. You could do with the red. Like there's so many ideas that people could throw out there and do for her, but DC's not considering that. They're under this delusion that Black doesn't sell, even though I have listed every reason as to why that's not true. And yet, for some reason, people will still say, no, that doesn't sell, sorry, or whatever. And it's just like, I don't understand what your logic is.
It's crazy the amount of excuses people are making for DC, like DC can see them kind of sucking them off in the comments. They
Mm,
say Black comics don't sell. People don't care what color their comic characters are. You're being picky because Absolute Green Lantern happened, even
mhm,
though that's in the Absolute universe, not in the main
mhm.
timeline. And it's just
Yeah.
crazy to me how hard they're willing to go just to prove you wrong, but you're giving them nothing but facts.
And it's like and that's what was so crazy about it is like I've done my best to be as critical as I can be without being toxic, and that's what I like appreciate. Like I've like found it very like pleasing the fact that like DC hasn't blocked me, Snyder hasn't blocked me. Like it's very much being like everything that I'm saying can be backed up. Everything that is stated, I can pull Comic Con numbers, I can pull like information that I've done from behind the scenes as well as on the record. Like everything shows that this is the information on display, and it's like prove me wrong, I dare you. And it's like I'm doing it in the most respectful way possible because there are a lot of people that have been trying to like co-opt the movement and say DC's racist or things of that nature. And no, it's not. But like the term that I heard from behind the scenes that I've been given permission like to say without like saying who it was. It's like DC is risk averse right now. So when I make the joke on stream or in videos where I say, "Oh, you want a Vixen book? How about 5 more Batman books?" It's like meant to be hyperbolic, but in reality, it's the true nature of DC right now, where they're thinking we need to make sure we're staying afloat. We cannot take a risk on what's currently the issue at hand. And that's what's so scary about it.
And what's crazy to me, no disrespect to any of the comic writers, I don't mean this rudely, I don't. But you guys won't put out a Black ongoing, but you'll give us DCKO?
like it's crazy too, and event fatigue is a real thing. Like I have been saying, event fatigue has been existing in comic books since 2017, where
Yeah.
we had like Civil War 2, Secret Empire, there was an Infinity event to tie into the movie, like the Marvel like was draining us for a while, and then DC was like, here's Rebirth, and then Suicide Squad versus the Justice League, and then there were more things, and it's just like, when are y'all gonna like give everybody like a 2 year break without soliciting anything, let alone publishing anything? Like, I would kill for DC and Marvel both just to like give us 2 years of just stable, consistent status quos, no drama. Like the fact that I woke up the other day and they were like, X-Men event coming, and I'm like, didn't we just have an X-Men event? Like,
Yes,
I'm
yes, they did.
tired.
They did, and that was the one I was gonna bring up because it's every few months now, and it's like, the X-Men are already exciting. What are
Yeah,
you doing? Why do we need this? It feels cheap. It feels like you're trying to catch lightning in a bottle over and over, and it doesn't work. Instead of focusing on the actual characters and their stories, you're just
yeah.
giving them this huge event where you don't have to put really any thought into any particular character.
Yeah, and it's like I even said for the longest time that like Marvel could have just let Hickman keep cooking with the Krakoa era. And like I've been saying for the longest time, all you needed to do was just have Destiny walk into a room with a gun and take Moira out and let it keep publishing, because y'all even got Krakoa still featured in Marvel Rivals. Like you have that going on where you could have good plot lines involved in that. You can let Storm be on the Mars and whatnot and let that all flow into the continuity. But y'all wasted it. And it's like you've alienated fans who were willing to get on board with Hickman again. And now it's like you do the same thing with the Ultimate Universe where you botched Hickman's work again. And it's like, how many times is Hickman going to keep walking into a rake before Hickman just gets tired of y'all, never comes back? Like, this idea that, like, he's almost the Jeff Johns of the Marvel Universe where he keeps coming back in and fixing your nonsense. And then you kick him out once you think you don't need him anymore. And it's like, that's going to end up biting them in the rear end at some point, especially like, or right now with the Armageddon event, Sadarsky kind of already let it slip that Armageddon's not going to lead to a reboot, so no one's really invested because they're waiting for the refresh.
They're doing a lot of very questionable things, especially with that, or Age of Revelation, where they started it with saying, oh, it's in the future, so there's no stakes, no stakes at all. And then they interrupted every single X title for this godforsaken event. And then it led to where we're at with Storm, Earth's Mightiest Mutant. And it's like, you guys did it to yourselves, and you're hurting all the comic creators on the way, and they don't seem to care.
It's crazy, and it's like I'll even give Dan Slott this. Dan Slott tried to like tell everybody the Krabby Patty secret formula to how like sales work in every publisher, where he tried to explain how pre-orders work, and then
Yes.
everyone assumed that like, oh, he's begging for Marvel, and it's like, no, he's trying to save y'all a lot of hassle, because it's like if y'all actually supported the way we were supposed to, Marvel would stop with this nonsense. But y'all keep letting Marvel play in your face with these relaunches and these gimmicks, like. I remember back when Marvel Legacy first kicked off, where they were like, all right, cool, we're going to stop with the relaunches for like 5 seconds and give you legacy numbering. But then 6 months later, they said, okay, cool, we're going to relaunch, but we're going to give you legacy numbering in the little bottom of the number of the bracket. So that way y'all
Yeah.
can still do it that way. And it was like, what was the point of the legacy numbering then? Like, it's insane to where, like, there's no hope for just carrying on numbers. And like, the fans kind of fall for it, if we're being honest with ourselves, because they fall for the cover gimmicks, they fall for the number one push, and then in two, three, four, five, etc., they just don't care anymore. And I feel like until we change the culture, we're not going to change Marvel and DC, which kind of sucks.
Honestly, changing the culture is the main goal at the end of the day. But with both of them, I don't think there's going to be an actual big change until someone that works at these companies comes out and speaks. Like
Mm.
Stephanie Phillips would never. But if she did came out and said, "This is
Ooh.
what they did to Planet She-Hulk. I had this plan, but they decided to cut it short." Or if Mariwa came out and said, "This is what they did to Storm. This was my plan. This is how we're being treated." It won't happen, but that would be the thing to start all of this on the right track.
And it's crazy because like I interviewed David F. Walker a while back, and he was kind of candid to a certain extent about how both publishers are, but it's like he still does a little bit with Marvel, so we couldn't speak totally about things. But it's
Hmm.
like the stories we would have if people actually could speak on things would be insane because it's just like they take advantage of things. I think about Len Wein when it comes to the fact of how he didn't get the respect he deserved when it came to Wolverine, where it's like it doesn't make sense the way people speak on things. It's like like where he did. I don't even think Len Wein got a ticket to the last Wolverine premiere, where it's like, dude was a co-creator. Respect that. Respect the love that goes into these things. Or like how I remember back when Comicsgate first kicked off, and Marvel didn't stand on business for all the women who used to work at Marvel, and now they're not there. Like I think of Heather Antos, where she's over at Valiant now. Like the ability where you could have stood on business and had progression happen in the best of ways. Like Captain Marvel has not recovered since the onslaught of hate that she got, where they were labeling her as Carl Manvers and insulting her and all this, then the third. It's like you could have stood on business and cared about these creators and your property, but instead you wasted it. And now Margaret Stoll wants nothing to do with y'all. Like Kelly Thompson went to DC. Like you've lost all these opportunities because y'all couldn't stand on business.
Exactly. Like I want, as much as I do agree about Len Wein, and he should have had that respect paid to him, the same thing happened to Rob Liefeld, and it's like that's fine.
I
So
mean, see, man, there's gonna come a day when I like have like there's gonna come a day where I sit down and I finally unload the clip on Liefeld, but it's just not worth it
it's
because
not.
like
Where
he
does it
like
get
he
you?
yeah, and it's like if you go too hard on him, he's just gonna like vanity search it and go off, and it's like it could burn bridges. But in reality, he's burning bridges for himself. He's been real good at that over the years. Like I even got into a spat with Eric Larson this past week, and that was fun,
I
but
saw
it was
that.
very it was very much like tell me where I'm wrong about anything that I've said, and then he was just silent. So it's very much like I even when I bring things to the table, other people like other people will say different things about these creators, but I'm just gonna like say evidence. I'm gonna say exactly what's been proven, exactly what the receipts are, and if you can conflate them, go for it. I would love for you to try, but this is what's true, and if you can tell me I'm wrong, go for it.
And that's what I've always appreciated, how you've really taken this whole DC So White thing off, I mean, by storm, really,
Mm,
because you've always presented facts. You've never said they're racist, they're this, they're
mm,
probably this, they're probably Klansmen. You know
mm.
how some people like to, it's not that they make it ignorant, but they make it almost a fairy tale villain kind of, where you're like, okay, well, that's
Mm,
very much based out of emotion and assumptions, but you come at them with every fact, everything that
mm.
can be checked, and somehow you still get argued with, and it's like, what are we doing?
It's crazy too because like I had a fan who's follows me on Twitter. They got blocked by Scott Snyder this past week, and they were like super sad about it. They were like they asked me like what did I do wrong, and it's like I told you what you did wrong like weeks ago. I told you to be respectful, not go off the cuff, and it was like they very much were like. I should have just like not let my feelings get overwhelmed and like let my anger rule me. It's like, yeah, no, like you let it like get that way. And I think the biggest problem that we have when it comes to certain things is that people let these funny page books like control everything about them. They let these things like control every essence that they are. And to be fair, like I have them on my wall. Like I care about these stories. I was traumatized as a young age. My first book ever was Batman the Cult. I've been involved in this since I was 6. I understand how important these stories can be, but to reference what happened with Magic during Age of Revelation, and people wanted to scalp Tim Seeley. I'm like, look, dude's crazy and needs to take a reality check, but like saying you're gonna scalp somebody on the internet is wild. Like it's the idea that we put too much of ourselves and too much of our emotions into these products, but it's like it's just paper. Like there's this great video during a documentary of the founder of Dark Horse Comics where he just sat there with a stack of single issues and went, it's just paper. He started tearing them. He started just tearing it apart and being like, it's just paper. And don't get me wrong, the paper matters and representation matters, and we can have those conversations. But if DC just came out tomorrow and said we're never publishing a Black ongoing again, I'm like, all right, cool. I'm not going to take my money elsewhere. I'm going to support Concrete, support all these different creators. Summit Comics just came out with their fifth Kickstarter, and that's been successful. They want to make sure that diversity is in the forefront of things. But like, until DC like changes what they're doing or they say they're not going to do something, I'm going to stand on business and report on it, and I'm going to make sure that people know what's up, but I'm never going to be horrible about it. And someone tried to, like, that same person was like, do you think Scott Snyder's racist? I'm like, no, that man is tired. That man is tired. You can see it in his face. I remember meeting him back in 2016 at Cincinnati Comic Expo, and even there he was tired. That was like right when metal was kicking off. That man is exhausted, and he's never had a nap since. So it's like, the idea that people could say certain things about creators, it just shows a lack of knowledge. It shows a lack of information, and I was even talking with someone before the show where I was like, there is a barrier between creators and fans that the publishers have created, and it's lessened over the years. Like, there's less stones in the wall because social media has created avenues to talk about things, but there's still a lack of information through so many people that they think these people are horrible, and it's like, not really. Like, when you really talk to them, like, there's bad people, sure, but like, the majority of them are really not who you think they are.
I think a lot of people, I think that's very true. And I think a lot of people do get lost in that where they're blaming the creators. They're blaming, I've seen artists blame too. It's crazy to me because at the end of the day, this is all about money. You
Mm-hmm.
know, maybe these people who are saying no to every single black thing is not racist. I don't know. I don't know them. But I do
Mm-hmm.
know they care more about money than they do about their black fans.
Yeah.
And that tells you something there.
Yeah, and it's like like there was people for a while that were saying, "Oh, DC is homophobic," and I'm like, they may not they're not homophobic because Poison Ivy's on the shelf. Like, they're not like horrible against queer individuals because they let certain books be published. They wouldn't have a pride book every year. Like, they're more money focused. And granted, Extraño's never had a book, but he's getting a Funko Pop. But it's like, at least they're doing some things. Like, they've, like, Dan DiDio famously, before he was kicked out of DC, wrote in the Love Is Love anthology that he wanted to apologize for Extraño, even though he didn't create Extraño. He apologized for the idea that he was bitten by an AIDS vampire. So it's like, there's certain things that have been said in honor or in on the behalf of DC that tells me, no, they're not like bigoted. They're just money focused. They may have bigoted people working for them at times. They may have sexist people that work there at certain times. We know the stories of people like that. But it's like, they just care about money. They want to know what's the bottom line and how things are done. But I think to myself, how much more money you actually could have if you actually cared about the people who are reading your stories. Because there's something to be said about the cishet white fan who is considered a whale in terms of money when it comes to finances, who come in every week. They're the Wednesday warrior. They have certain books that they buy every time they come out. But how much more money could you get if you actually said, hey, black fans, or hey, queer fans, hey, women fans, I'm going to give you more of what is valued by you. That way you could get more content. And it would be phenomenal if they actually did that, but it seems like they don't value that type of dollar for some reason.
I've thought about that myself because, you know, for every white fan, that could very well be two black fans. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, why is that not mentioned in these meetings where they shoot down every idea for a black character? Also, to go back to your point on where you would take your money, you guys should check out Midnight Comics because they're amazing.
Most
And
definitely. Shout out to my co-host
they're
Tashi. She's amazing.
she is incredible. So definitely check them out.
Mhm. So it's just like, they could do so much more with that, where it's just like, I don't understand the thought process. And like, I've been trying to stack up every logical reason beyond the three that I gave in the article, where it's like, there's the fact that comic shops are not as welcoming to people of color or women. Like, you could probably have like a handful of stories of the things that you've dealt with in comic shops, where it's like, they act as if y'all don't know what you're talking about, you shouldn't be there, you should go play with dolls or something that's like that, where it's like, y'all have to fight for your place at the table. So it's like, these ideas that people have about certain people or fans, it's like, we've been here since the beginning. Like, we've been here since like the fundamental, like people like people wouldn't have half the stuff at DC if it weren't for Jeanette Kahn. So it's like when people say certain things and try to act as if they know things, it's like y'all have these weird preconceived notions that people have told you, but in reality, no, you know nothing about this industry.
I completely agree. And some of those women are writing some absolute bangers. I mean, you have Gail Simone, Stephanie Williams, Stephanie Phillips. You have all these amazing writers that aren't getting the attention they deserve, and they have to go and put out they have to hype themselves out on social media.
Mm,
We all remember when Stephanie Williams was allegedly doing a good job. Shout out to Bleeding Cool, who said she was allegedly that the Dakota incident was allegedly going for a second printing. So I'm just saying that wouldn't happen to someone else, a male
mm.
white comic creator. That just wouldn't happen. So you do have to keep your eyes open for all these things because they put it right in your face. It's right there. And now comic creators are speaking out about it, which they absolutely should because it's shedding light on a huge problem that there's only one demographic that a bunch of comic fans, comic creators, and publishers want to focus on.
Yeah, it's wild too. I remember Chris Arant, who used to be the editor of Newsarama, which we saw what happened to Newsarama, but like he is now the editor in chief of Popverse. He had an idea like back in 2018 where there should have been a comic creators union like decades ago, but it goes back to how DC and Marvel were founded, where they were employing Jewish men, and because that was the only jobs they could get back in the day, they would just find another way to employ writers, whether it be under scab names or like people who just would work for the money, and the quality of the content would be lesser, but it would still be taking advantage of people because they don't want to actually work within the confines of unions if they don't have to. Like, I have heard the horror stories of artists who said they can't afford healthcare because of the stuff that
Yeah.
goes on in the industry. So it's just like people act as if they know how these creators operate, but it's like I remember hearing the stories of certain creators who like saw their work be tarnished by DC and Marvel and ended up like taking their own lives. Like I think of Steve Gerber a lot of the time about how he all he wanted to do was do right by Howard the Duck, and Marvel wouldn't let him because that the corporate fat cats didn't want to do right by Howard. So it's just like I people think they know certain things, but these publishers don't really care as much as they say they do. They care about the finance part of it at the end of the day.
I mean, how every other week you see someone who was an iconic comic creator, iconic artist that are fighting for their lives of cancer or something and they can't afford any of it. Meanwhile, their character that they created is getting a movie made about him.
Yeah. It's crazy. I remember when like one of the comics gators tried to sue Mark Waid, and Mark Waid had to start like a GoFundMe for it, and then like dude ended up losing the case. It's just like these ideas. Like, and granted, there's certain like programs, like there's the Comic Creator Legal Defense Fund, and there's things like that, but those are like charity things. Those are like like foundations. They're not like things that are being done on behalf of the publishers. And it's crazy to me how like people act as if they understand certain things about the industry. When I started to be like the little girl from House of M, I started to be Layla Miller and be like, hey, that's not how sales work. That's not how sales work. Pre-orders matter. People were blown away. Like I do like Wednesday Warrior, like major content creators in the space who make new comic book day videos were like, that's how that works. And I'm like, bro, you don't even know how this industry works, and you're buying books like hundreds of dollars of books on the monthly, and you don't know how this industry works. Like that's insane to me. And it's just people try to act as if that they're like well respected opinions about things. They try to say certain things. So the idea that someone could say like a publisher is racist doesn't make any sense to me at the end of the day.
It is, yeah. I've seen a lot of people who are very unaware of the whole pre-order thing and how that works in the same breath as saying, oh, well, that's because DC is racist. That's because Marvel is sexist. And it's like, well, wait, let's calm down. There's so much more that goes into it, and you don't know a lot of it. So I do think education is key in making a change. And that's clearly what you're doing as well with DC
Most
So
definitely.
White. So, where do you want to see DC So White go?
Well, Stage two happens on May 28th. I'll say that much about stage two.
Mhm.
But in terms of the goal, what the entire like push is, it's very much focused on trying to create equity. It's the idea of if people say black books don't sell, all right, fine. Let's put 1 to 3 books up. Let's properly promote them. Let's not have a Dakota incident situation again, where you have creators themselves paying out of pocket to make trailers for them and you not caring about them. Let's not have that incident again. Let's you actually learn how to be a social media platform and actually promote the content, because for some
Yeah.
reason it seems like DC social media, it doesn't know what the heck they're doing half the time. You actually tell people how the books work. You stop living in this idea of plausible deniability and stop just relying on comic shops to explain things. And obviously, the idea of digital can't really be addressed right now. We just saw the last person from Comixology just like get fired, but it's like in the like at the very least promote them well, explain how the sales work to a certain extent, and give them a fair shot and leave them on the table for like 18 to 24 months. Give it solid 2 years, if not a year and a half, because you're going to have individuals that want to pick this up and trade. You and I both know parents all the time will be like, huh, this $20 book has 6 issues of a comic book in it. This one issue is $5. What's the better value for my child, or what's the better value for me as a parent who's still a fan? This like let's actually think about this before we just throw away the idea of a trade and actually count the trade pre-orders and the trade sales over the course of a year. That way people actually can look at that, because a perfect example is when Mr. Terrific Year One was coming out. People didn't know there was a book for Mr. Terrific by the time the Superman movie came out. For some reason, DC was like, we're going to drop the first 2 issues before the movie comes out. And comic stores were like, oh, well, no one's going to buy this black book, so we're not going to pre order. We're not going to buy copies of it. And now there's hardly any copies of the issue one out in the ether. So it's like this idea where you actually have to give people the attempt to try. And you and I both know that publishers have meetings and talk with the comic shops. Like granted, those are optional. Not every comic shop speaks to the publishers, but the publishers can easily go to Comics Pro or go to these different events and be like, hey, we're going to do this push. We want you to believe in this. We want to promote these. Try to buy them for a little bit, give it a shot. Don't just throw them away. We're putting A-list talent on the book. That way it has a high chance of success. We want to actually believe in what we are being told from the fans, that black books can sell. Because the idea of you saying black books doesn't sell doesn't work if you have like falsified or even incomplete data. Because if you look at a book like Black Lightning from last year, the PR was horrible. You didn't tell anybody like what was going on. They don't know how the system works. And it had horrible sales. Or Power Company Recharge. Power Company Recharge was supposed to be the idea of you launching basically the crew for DC, be a whole team of black superheroes. But hardly anybody knew about it. Even though you had the creative team on social media trying to tell people, not everybody follows the social media, like those people on social media. So the idea of actually telling people how the books work and actually promoting them right, maybe even, I don't know, go out of the comic sphere of influence when you finally do announce a static book. Maybe go out there and tell people, hey, you know how you're watching Static on Tubi because we gave the license to Static to Tubi? Maybe you could go pick up that Static book at your local comic book shop. Maybe you could go pre-order it because that's how sales work, and we're not just going to trust the comic shop to tell you that. You can go pick this up at your local comic shop or add it to your pull list at your local comic book shop, and that way you can tell DC, us at DC, you want more Static content, because we constantly hear y'all say y'all want a Static movie. How about you go read some Static content, that way we can see if you actually would want a Static movie?
You said a lot, and I agree
Yeah.
with a lot of it. The part about Static is the one that got me because I've had such a beef with Batman Static Beyond, right? I was
Ooh,
like,
yeah,
"Oh
that's my
my."
first YouTube video next week. I'm excited about that.
I'm very excited to see what you say because I have so many thoughts on it. It's like I was hyped because, like, I think Static really raised a lot of us, you know? We
Mm-hmm.
all, like, went through that,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh my God, they're going to combine Terry and Static and everything's great. And then I read it. And tell me why Static is nothing more than an assistant in that mini series. And I know that DC looks at it and says, see, they don't want black characters, they don't sell. But okay, I want to know how many people bought the first issue and then
Mm.
slowly tapered off because people were hyped when it first came out. And then now it's kind of like the Walking Dead thing where you're like, so when did you stop reading it?
Mm. And it's
And that's
crazy
when it,
too. It's like I I made this. I talked about this on a show this past week where I said if they would have actually promoted that book more,
mm-hmm,
people would have been excited about it. Like a perfect example of that. I reached out to Evan Narcissus and Nicholas Draper Ivy for an interview about that book. DC didn't reach out to me and say, "Hey, do you want to interview these people?" Like
mm-hmm,
they didn't reach out to Comic Pop or Comics Explained and say, "Hey, do you want to interview these creators because you're two of the largest like comic platforms in the space?" Like they're not going out of their way to trust the fact that social media has evolved. Like I was on someone's podcast a few months ago and they were like, "I didn't know Static had a book back during 2021." And it's like, how did you not know that? It's this idea that people aren't being reached outside of the basic like comic book news platform press release, because you've seen the press releases, I've seen them. The idea that it's one email, that's all you get. It's one like email. Everybody shoves it out because almost like most like comic web news websites regurgitate the same press release and then they keep it
yeah,
pushing. And it's like that's not a knock on what we do. It's not like as journalists, it's not a knock on what we do. It's just what is protocol. And we'll have op-eds and things that expand on things, but that's just part of the culture. And so much of that is dismissed. So much of that is thrown out out the pasture. And it's like in 5 minutes, no one's going to be thinking about that. But why aren't you actually trying to reach fans? Because you can't say, "Oh, fans didn't buy it," if fans don't know about it. It's like that metaphor people say when it comes to Absolute Batman as of late, where they're like, "Oh well, these sales are helping everybody else's sales. That means that's good, right? Like all tides, like rising tide lifts all ships." And I'm like, you can't have a rising tide lift all ships if the ships aren't in the water.
yeah.
Like that's what I've been kind of like telling people. If there's no ship in the water to lift, how is it gonna lift?
And it's very true. There has been a huge thing going on where they're like, oh, well, DC's doing fine. Absolute Universe is doing great. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, but like Absolute Universe might not be here forever, and it hasn't been here forever. There's other characters that DC has built on that they've given nothing. A lot of their comics have given us nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And but hey, the Absolute's doing great.
And see, there's been a lot of like black fans or regular fans who have been like, "I want an absolute Static book, absolute Black Lightning book, or an absolute Mister Terrific book," and A, no. B, the idea of that is like it spits in the face of the idea of the fact that we need mainline content. We need like to be able to say that we have stories, because I literally did the math the other day. There's never been a omnibus for a black character at DC. So it's like we need content. We need good content to be able to publish and put into stuff that way people can put on their shelves. Like there's whole TikTok accounts and YouTube accounts devoted to omnibuses and things of that nature. So it's like you need people to actually be able to like collect things and have in their hands. But also, and here's the tough lesson that no one's gonna really understand, while we jokingly say that Al Ewing is the Greg Rucka of black people, where we like let him do his thing because he does what he does well for black folks. Um, Absolute Green Lantern not only is an ensemble story, but it focuses more on the military as well as the queer experience rather than the black experience. And here, like the lesson that people need to understand is an absolute black book wouldn't be what you think it would be. DC is not going to let a writer go in and actually give you the black experience. In fact, I would even argue that the closest you would ever get to an absolute Static book is the original Static run by Dwayne McDuffie, because it actually gives you the black experience. It talks about racism, it talks about homophobia, it talks about gang violence. It actually gives you a real perspective on things. It doesn't sugarcoat anything. And that's what we love about the absolute universe, because it gives us a new perspective, it gives us new fun things, but it's even harsher on reality in some cases, like we saw with the annual for Absolute Batman. It doesn't sugarcoat a lot of things and actually tries to give you targeted messaging in a lot of cases. So I really want to challenge. I'm probably gonna make a video about this. Like I want to challenge fans to understand that an absolute black book would be volatile and not around for a long time, but also it wouldn't be what you think it is, because DC can't even give you the black experience in mainline. How are they going to give you the black experience in the absolute universe?
All they're doing is setting up for the future for when they say, it didn't feel like the absolute universe. It didn't feel like it should. They should have done this. And it's like, but what you're saying is right. Like, there's no winning there
Yeah.
whatsoever. It's just ridiculous. But I mean, I love what you said about the Mr. Terrific series, because that was a point I was going to touch on as well.
Mm.
That year one was what, a 6 issue miniseries, right?
Yeah.
And that's all they've gotten. And then,
Mm.
there's Batman and Static Beyond, but like that's not main continuity.
Mm.
And there's just so many different instances, like how Miles Morales was left out of Superman and Spider-Man. There's so many
Mm.
little things that you don't realize until someone else points it out. So I think it's very important to point these things out.
Yeah, and it's like, to even like float back the idea of someone saying that like Scott Snyder is racist. I don't think like that's the perspective I want people to have. I want people to question the idea that, how, if you're in charge of a whole publishing initiative and someone pitch, and like he even said in an interview or on social media that all the books that are being published were just what was pitched and what was selected. But I'm sitting here going, if you look at a whole list of books that are being published and all you see is a sea of white, why doesn't that bother you? Why doesn't that bother you? The idea that there is no black story, there is no Spanish story, there is no like LGBT story beyond the one you're giving them in June. Like, yeah, Harley and Ivy are queer, but like that's barely a footnote in the story unless it's being done by somebody with intent. Like, yeah, G. Willow Wilson is like putting like hand to fist and is trying to actually give you some queer content, but that wasn't even part of Next Level. That was something that was being done and is being kept alive by Poison Ivy fans because they've been happy to get something. But it's like the idea of, where's a Midnighter and Apollo book? Batwoman's getting a shot, but only because her creator is being a part of the initiative. Like, if like I question if we would have gotten a Batwoman book if some random new like queer writer came in and wanted to pitch it. Like that's the concern, is that, are you actually hearing pitches, or are you hearing pitches from the same handful of people? Because Jeff Lemire, I love him. I love Jeff Lemire to death. I own the library editions of Black Hammer. I say that Black Hammer is a better Watchmen than Watchmen. But you can't tell me Jeff Lemire would have listened to the critique. Hey, can we have Jason in there instead of Ronnie for Firestorm? Like, you can't tell me that some of your other writers wouldn't have been open to writing something else if you would have had the conversation with them. It's just um it's unconscious thought when you're so used to a certain status quo of, oh, my whole life is white people, so obviously this is okay, right? Like, it's the idea of, it's just your ordinary life, so you're not thinking, hey, when have we done this last? When have we done an ongoing for a black character? But then when you put the data in front of them, they go, "Oh, that's really bad." It's like the idea of actually seeing the actual data and thinking about it, where it's like, why wasn't this on your mind to begin with? Why wasn't there any thought to the fact that the same few characters are getting opportunities, or like the whole point of DC Next Level was to bring up minor characters. But then when I saw the slide from New York Comic Con, I was like, Shadow of the Bat. Where have I heard that before? Bad. Like, I've heard bad a lot as of late. That doesn't sound like a minor character book. Like, that bothers me. Where it's like, there's plenty of Bat content. Half the line, if not the majority of the DC line, is Bat or Bat adjacent. So it's like, when are you gonna stop leaning on your cash cow and try to have some more animals on the farm? Like, you have to start thinking about that a little bit when it comes to the rest of your publishing line.
I completely agree. And the fact is, like, they do look at these pitches and they don't, it's like, I don't want to say they don't see color because I don't know them, but I do know they
Mm,
see dollar signs. They know what'll sell. And they're like, you know what? Another Bat one, another Bat family centric comic will just
mm.
do the trick. And I just want to say, some of us are really tired of Batman.
See, I said something recently where I was like, Batman is like the Ouroboros of comic books, where he he is the thing that is keeping it afloat, but it's also the parasite of comic books, where it's sucking away the potential of any new ideas
Yeah.
while single-handedly keeping certain things afloat. And it's like, it's kind of how for 20 years, well, 20 plus years, give or take, um, Diamond was the thing that kept comic books afloat for so many like so much, so long of time, to where I'll even say it. I said it on social media 2 days ago in a post that Jimmy Palmiotti made. I was like, I kind of miss the days where we had a monopoly, because then we had transparent sales data. So it's like, I missed that time period, because Diamond every month would be like, here's the monthly sales charts, here's what all your books made, have a good day. And it's like, I kind of missed that, because that was a time period where you actually could like have transparency and everyone was beholden to that. But at the same time, it took literal bankruptcy for a monopoly to end. And I'm kind of sitting here like, when is the bat train gonna finally fall off the rails for the industry to finally realize that one billionaire needs to not be the focal point of our universe anymore?
And even when he's not the focal point, he's always there. Just like in everything. And it's exhausting.
Look at DCKO. They had to eject him from the whole event, that way he wouldn't be the focal point.
And then he still was a focal point. Like, I won't lie.
Yeah,
Batman Night Fight was phenomenal. I loved that
agreed.
little miniseries. But at the same time, it's like he could have taken the squat somewhere. He could have just sat somewhere.
Mm.
We didn't need it. It's whatever. DCKO happened. We all have to come to terms with it. But
And it makes me sad too, because like, Tim Drake is my favorite Robin. Like, Tim Drake is what got me
love
into
him.
comics when I first started collecting comic books. I was collecting Jeff Johns' Teen Titans, and like, I still say like top five, Tim Drake is one of my favorite characters of all time. But I'm also just like, I'm so tired of Batman. It's exhausting.
It's there was a weird feeling of guilt when they announced a Batwoman comic coming, and I was like, I mean, that's cool, but at the same time, he's just always there somewhere. So, something I do appreciate that I feel like is all the trolls go to say to you when you talk about DC So White. They're like, all right, what about the Latinos? What about the Asians? And I really
Mm.
appreciate how you put it, where you say you don't realize that changing this changes it for everyone. So, what are
Mm-hmm.
your
And
thoughts on that?
I want to pull up something that really made me happy. Artist Mike Choi replied to my repost about this, because I've had it happen a couple times and I've kind of ignored it. I wasn't going to mention it. Other people have defended me in the comments when people say that. But I finally got to a point where I said something like last week. And I was like, there's been a number of folks who have done this, trying to question why we're not writing for like all marginalized groups. But here's the secret: we are writing for all marginalized groups, because we talk about the pre-order system, we talk about digital not being considered, we talk about trades not being considered. This is for everybody. Heck, I'll even keep it a bean. This is for Green Arrow too, because Green Arrow got fucked over by the fact that the sales are tracked right. Because I've known of fans in other countries who have said they were reading Green Arrow and it got canceled. So it's like, this is for everybody. But I loved what artist Mike Choi said in my comments, where he said this in all caps. He said this: as an Asian person, please don't use me in your all lives matter ing. It's this idea where, like, it kind of goes back to like Black Lives Matter, where it's like
Yeah.
black folks brought up this issue, but then people would say, no, black lives don't matter, all lives matter. And it's like, that's not the point of the conversation. It's the idea that black folks are being disparaged in this category as well. y'all could say something if you want to. We're not going to have a problem with you co opting the movement and standing alongside us. You're just choosing not to. And we've even got some pushback in the past few weeks when it comes to building up for stage two, where some people have been like, what about LGBT characters? And I'm sitting here like, hey, there's a brand new LGBT anthology coming out from Tiny Onion from Dark Horse, all about queer monsters and monster relationships that looks phenomenal. Has Titan, has Jatsia, who's also working on the DC Pride book, has Vidayala, looks phenomenal. Why don't you go spend your money on that? Why are you so worried about DC Pride when you can go read that? Why is that, like, why are you looking to DC for your like what 1 month a year fix when there's other publishers that are giving you queer content year round? Like, Image is very well like versed to giving you queer content like very annually. Vault Comics has like queer content. Vault Comics is one of the most like adult queer books I've seen in a long time, called Money Shot. Like, if that doesn't tell you what the title of that book does, I don't know what will. So it's like when people say certain things, or like hell, Titan is very well known for having queerness put in the main forefront of his books, whether it be Department of Truth, whether it be Sick Tick, whether it be freaking Exquisite Corpses. Like, there's something, there's a little bit of gay in all one of them, and yet y'all aren't supporting those. Why? So it's just when people try to be performative and want to like go to bat, like you were saying earlier, for like a $1 million company. I'm just kind of sitting here like, those crumbs taste real good, don't it? Like, that's all I got for them. It's just like, y'all be really hungry for them crumbs, but in reality, you could be eating a whole feast, or at least a happy meal, and not be doing so dirty to yourself. So it's just, I want people to aspire to more. There was something that Kofi Kingston, the wrestler, said this past week when when there was the conversation being brought up about him and Xavier Woods being like parting ways from the WWE, where he said, don't let somebody I'm paraphrasing, but he said, don't like let somebody like give you less than what you're worth. And if you're telling me that DC is allowed to say that black people are worth 10 ongoings in less than 50 years, in 50 years in January, I have a problem with that. Like, if you're telling me that DC can say that black people are only allowed one book to ever cross 50 issues, and that's Steel, I have a problem with that. If that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. I think this whole issue has brought out a lot of intrusive thoughts that people meant to keep quiet, and they
Mm,
did not. For what it's worth, to anyone listening who will comment somewhere saying it is all lives matter. All lives matter can't doesn't work if black lives don't matter. It's just simple math. So take that with you, keep it in your pocket and pull it out when you feel confused. But
mm,
yeah, it is 100% shown so many ignorant thoughts, so many people who are like, I leave my white comics alone, leave my white characters alone, and no one's attacking them. No one's
mm.
doing anything. You're just asking for more representation, which is your right to, as someone who spends money on the comic book industry, someone who's a fan of these characters, and someone that is heavily involved in the comic book industry.
And it's like the conversation when it comes to pre-orders, digital sales, and things of that nature, it affects the entire industry, because when you really think about it, how many more indie publishers would benefit from the idea that digital is actually considered more, where or trades are considered more, or if the pre-order system is understood? Like, we know so many comic shops that have like big DC sections, big Marvel sections, and then indie books are confined to your pull list because they don't see value in indie titles. How many indie titles, like, I challenged a bunch of content creators a while back where I was like, look, I just interviewed a comic book store owner where he says our new comic book day videos are having such an adverse effect where all they see is the absolute Batmans, the DC KOs, the Amazing Spider-Man or Ultimate Spider-Man. They're not seeing hardly any pickups of indie titles.
Yeah.
what if y'all pick up one or two indie titles per new comic book day video and try new things? And it had an effect where you see some creators making like whole dedicated Fridays or Saturdays to promoting indie comic books, and you're seeing people like Ignition Press and Vault Comics be able to, or like Tiny Onion's been giving opportunities to content creators to like pimp out their books. So it's just when people look outside of the sphere of influence that has been the big two for so many years, you'll find some of your favorite stories of all time. I say books like Wasted Space from Vault Comics or Bitterroot or Philadelphia are some of my favorite books of all time over the big two because they have given me some of the best refreshing stories of all time, some of the things that have impacted me the most by just not being there. They've been elsewhere. I told Ted Sakura one time, the writer of Wasted Space, that his story saved my life when I was in one of the darkest periods of my life. And it's like, to be able to, like, because it was the idea of one guy being able to say, I'm going to refuse my destiny and go like take the truth to the world. And I was put in a book that hardly anybody knows about to this day. And it's like, y'all could read these amazing stories. And like, what's funny enough, the guy who's doing the artwork for Absolute Wonder Woman did the art for that book. So it's like,
Hmm.
y'all could have amazing stories at your fingertips right now if you just put the cape shit down and go look elsewhere for 5 minutes.
It's very true. And if you've ever taken a dive into the indie comic book community, you'll see that a lot of these comics are so much more relatable. You'll find something
Yeah.
that can just sing to your soul in a way that Marvel and DC just can't. They're all superheroes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Indies are not saying that Marvel and DC aren't created with passion, but indies are created with a different kind of passion that you can't really find anywhere. These are people who put everything into making this, not knowing if it would be successful, if it would even be approved. And here they are killing it, and you guys are going for another Batman title.
And it's crazy too. I can only say that I have a tattoo of one comic book, and that's this. Like, I got this tattoo of the Aquaman trident because of the movie, because Jason Momoa made a really good speech about being biracial. That
Mhm.
wasn't about the comic book because they hardly ever focus on his biracial side. They focus on being an outsider from time to time, but they don't speak to it at the level that the movie did. But I can say that I have a tattoo because of James Tynion the Force work on House of Slaughter along with Tate Bromble. I can't say that about DC as a whole because they're not challenging norms. They're not challenging ideas. They left that to James Wan, the writer of the movie of Aquaman, to make that stand. Versus with Arthur Curry in the comic books, I ain't really seen him stand on business in a long time. Uh, and I'm more attached to Jackson Hyde than I am Arthur Curry. So it's like these ideas of people trying to say that comics aren't great. No, like you and I were talking before the show. Some people take like passion for comic books too far, but there's ways to be passionate about comic books and not be toxic. There's ways of being passionate about this medium and it mattering. And I would say indie comic books have given me some of the most passion I've ever had about the medium ever. And I like literally I told James to his face last month, I was like, you have made me some of the happiest I've ever been in comic books to the point I got a tattoo. So take that with pride.
There has been times where I've read an indie comic that just it does change you in a strange way that can't be touched by the bigger, more, I don't know, commercial comics. If like the power fantasy, if
uh,
no one's read it, it's by Kieran Gillen, and Kieran Gillen. I've never said his name out loud.
GIF, GIF, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah, yeah. But that is some of the most complex storytelling I've seen in quite some time about a superhero, about superheroes that's starting from the absolute beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an indie comic. You guys should absolutely check that out. There's so many hidden gems in the indie industry that just aren't getting the credit it deserves.
Or like I've even told people to this day, like whenever I have like a female fan come to me and want me to give them a book recommendation, I'm like, look, you can read Wonder Woman, you can read like Captain Marvel, you can read any like superhero, She Hulk, whoever. I'm gonna hand you Bitch Planet by Kelly Sue DeConnick first because that way you read some indie shit, you know about the industry, but you're empowered while you do it. Because Bitch Planet puts that like that like kick to your ass and be like, don't put no bullshit up. That's gonna be the book that like gives you a little bit of drive and puts a little bit of fire in you because you deserve to read this industry. You deserve to have a place here because I hate the idea that anyone would tell you not to have a place in this industry. So like I would hand someone an indie book, or like with black folks, I hand people Philadelphia all the time and be like, get to the end of that first issue and tell me if you don't hear your dad at the end of that issue, because that last line in the first issue, you will hear your black father by the end of that first issue, and if you don't, I question you a little bit.
I have to check out Bitch Planet. I haven't
You
actually read
haven't
it.
read Bitch Planet? Oh my
No,
god,
I
it's so good.
haven't. Ah, I'm gonna check it out just for you. That sounds amazing.
Mm.
Because I feel like everyone needs that thing that kicks them in the ass that keeps them going. You know,
Yeah,
I
it
need
was
that.
the book that got her to go do the Captain Marvel refresh for Marvel, where it was like that was the book she did an Image that like got her that fame. So it's like I always try to tell people, if you want something real quick, if you're cool with a mature story, Bitch Planet's where you need to go.
That is 100% what I'm going to be checking out because now I'm actually really excited. So, as we wrap up, would you mind telling my listeners where they can find you, how they can support DC So White, anything that they need to know?
So you can always find me on social media. I'm JPenumbra on every platform. Like then, like I have my live show, and then I post the show on Tuesdays. Well, actually late today. I need to make sure I post it tonight. Comics Unmasked. You can find it on YouTube on Sundays, and then on every podcast platform every other day of the week. And then I am just gonna be writing more for Comics Beat, like hopefully with Nerd Initiative as well. The idea of having like these two bylines, these two abilities to speak more about the industry the way people are informed. Because if we're not informed, how the hell are we gonna support the industry? And then with DC So White, like post respectfully to DC, to Scott Snyder, to Jim Lee, like say we want a black ongoing in the mainline continuity, hashtag DC So White. And then if you have the confidence, if you have the belief that you want to go all in with the initiative and want to hold DC accountable, get ready for May 28th. Get ready for stage two, because stage two is going to be a big ask of a lot of comic fans, and it will definitely test some people's resolve, and will show, and it's our big chance to show DC that we're serious. So look out for that.
Well, that all sounds amazing. So, my dear listener, if you'd like to find out where you can find James or DC So White, just look in the comments not the comments, but the part under the episode, you know, where all the great notes are. You'll love it. It's great. So, thank you for listening to this episode of Vigilante Vibes. Wherever you're listening to this episode, click that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my amazing guests like James or any other future episode. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a marvelous night.